Due Process, winner of 12 New York and Mid-Atlantic Emmys, including the 2008 award for Best Discussion Series.
Walking down the hallway and people calling you names and shouting things out, it definitely made it tough to go through on a daily basis.
Bullying. We all know it's a problem in schools, but is it also an issue when you go to work? There's a new bill pending that would make it illegal, but is it a law that makes sense? Workplace bullying up next on Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, supporting informed citizens for an effective democracy.
We know that it happens in schools all the time. The class bully terrorizing the smaller, weaker kid. And because it can turn school into a place of fear and intimidation, it's now being treated as a serious problem in districts throughout the state. But does bullying end when school ends, or does it take new forms in the workplace? I'm Sandra King, and on this edition of Due Process, the grown-up version of schoolyard bullying, the boss or even fellow worker who can turn your place of employment into a living hell. We'll talk to advocates of a bill that would give the bullied worker some refuge in the courts, and to an employment law expert who says they are pushing an unnecessary law that would encourage unnecessary lawsuits. That pending bill, called the Healthy Workplace Act, defines an abusive work environment as a place where an employee is subjected to conduct so hostile or threatening or humiliating as to cause physical or psychological harm. And it would put the onus for correction on the employer, who could be sued for the worker's emotional distress. Actor Kevin Spacey's role in the 1994 film Swimming with Sharks might give you an idea of just what kind of conduct we're talking about.
Come on, people, I'm late for a meeting here. Let's go, 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 go.
Unfortunately, work is not always fun, but it shouldn't be painful.
What you think means nothing. What you feel means nothing.
And we have laws that protect against harassment on the job.
It is your responsibility now to see that I get what I want.
If it's based on things like race or sexual orientation, gender, or religion.
In the U.S., there are no workplace bullying laws. It's perfectly legal. The truth is, it's sort of the workplace bullying is the last form of violence and abuse that we have not criticized yet. We find it still way too acceptable. We certainly don't like workplace homicide or battery, so the physical violence we've said no to. The psychological violence is the last bastion of abuse. We need to say no.
So a national movement is afoot to recognize the problem and take legal steps against it.
Workplace bullying is abusive behavior that crosses a line that has nothing to do with the legitimate interests of an employer or an organization. It's when you've got somebody being singled out by either supervisor or coworkers for certain types of abusive treatment that is designed to hurt that individual, psychologically and or physically.
And here in New Jersey, one assemblywoman seeking a legislative solution that includes the right to sue your employer.
The goal really is not to bring lawsuits so some people can become rich. The goal is to stop this behavior. And you want it to be the kind of thing where employers will not do this because they know that there could be a lawsuit.
And though there's been no stampede to pass the Greenstein bill, when lawyers from the Organization of Chinese Americans called a conference at the New Jersey Law Center, the topic they chose was bullying. Not at school, but at work.
I tried to do a little research and see if any companies had a voluntary anti-bullying policy, and I couldn't find anything. They have general policies about your dignity and workplace integrity, but there was no specific language about this.
Before I knew it, I was having a nervous breakdown. So I was in the hospital, you know, for more than 2 weeks. I was trying to commit suicide.
Jenny Ravello says it wasn't the work with Newark's Code Enforcement Office that caused her problems, but the bullying by fellow workers and bosses that put her in the hospital.
Just the attacks and the verbal attacks and the verbal attacks. And then I came back and there was this beautiful, big welcome back to hell. So obviously somebody thought it was hell we're working in for them to say that, and they know how hard they've been on me.
She says it began because she didn't support the political regime that was then in City Hall.
Under that mayor, you know, you had to be with him, because he found out that you were not with him, then the retaliation would come with the job.
But the bullying, she said, took on a life of its own.
The real harm of bullying is it's extremely disruptive to the workplace, and it destroys productivity. Ms. Ravello, as an example, for at least a year, if not more, she was dysfunctional as a result of what they did to her.
And since there was no law for relief from the bullying, her lawyer went another route, filed for workers' compensation, and won.
There was a workers' comp stress-related issue arising out of what can be categorized as a bullying situation of the type that the proposed bullying law would attempt to address.
What we're attempting to do with the Healthy Workplace Bill is fill that massive gap that exists in current legal protections for workers. Obviously, there are some similarities in behavior between schoolyard bullying and workplace bullying, but New Jersey has enacted a school bullying law that is much more comprehensive than anything you have at the employment level.
Bullying in school is now accepted as a real social problem.
They experience on a daily basis this fear of going to school, this inability to concentrate in the classroom because they don't know when they're going to get hit on the back of the head. This fear to use the hallways to go from class to class.
Is that perfume I smell? You know you're boring, don't you?
So could bullying in the workplace, too, be headed for some more serious treatment?
Right. If you listen and learn, then you're going to be able to do anything you want in this town. Great. You can have whatever you want. I mean, look at Rex here, a VP at Paramount. Ha! Rex, what a name, belongs to a mutt. I mean, if I can get Dog Boy here a job, you're going to do just fine.
Well, your boss may have never called you Dog Boy, but you get the idea. And in fact, the Healthy Workplace Act specifically targets repeated verbal abuse. It would hold the employer liable for creating or allowing an abusive work environment. The bill asserts that as many as 1 in 5 workers has been subjected to health-endangering workplace bullying. And while opponents say there is already enough employment law to deal with such behavior, bill advocates insist that discrimination laws are too restrictive, workers' comp laws too limited. And that's where we'll pick up the discussion when we come back. So stay with us.
No, I don't approve of bullying either in the workplace or in school, but I haven't studied the law. I don't know whether or not it's appropriate.
Certain things should not be tolerated, but to put a law in place, I'm not sure that I am one that believes that that will be effective.
There would be frivolous lawsuits all throughout the whole, for the rest of the time being, if that was the case. I don't think that's a good idea.
I would definitely support it, yeah, sure. I mean, I think that would go hand in hand with discrimination in the workplace.
It happens in the workplace, and a lot of times people are afraid to take up for themselves because they need their job, but bosses should be held accountable for it. I think so, 100%.
But when should the employer be held accountable? Should there be a new standard set? And just how common is the abusive work environment? For some very different answers, we turn to Kevin Costello, an employment lawyer on the plaintiff side and the chair of the Labor and Employment section of the American Association of Trial Lawyers of New Jersey. To Rosemary Alito, an employment lawyer on the defense side who literally wrote the book on employment law in New Jersey. And in Newark, to Leisa Ann Smith, an attorney who directs conflict resolution, peer mediation, and bullying programs for the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, which, by the way, is one of our funders. Kevin, let me start with you. Healthy Workplace Act. To most people watching this is a whole new concept. Needed why?
There is a pressing need, and has always been a pressing need, to protect the 90% of the workers in the state that, when they suffer abuse, have no current recourse under the law.
The law doesn't protect them now?
No, ma'am. The New Jersey law against discrimination, for example, addresses discrimination and bullying and harassment based on race or gender or ethnicity, to cite some examples. The Conscientious Employee Protection Act, the whistleblower statute, prevents harassment based upon your status as a whistleblower. And there are other narrow exceptions in our law, but generally, anything goes. And if I, as an employer, decide to treat my employees with not even human decency, to try to drive them to mental illness, to treat them in a way that, as some of my clients sometimes call and ask for help and I can't give it, are vomiting at night, losing their hair, having a mental breakdown.
Okay, so we saw a case like that
Yes, ma'am.
in our tape piece. And Jenny told us that she was ready to commit suicide because the work situation was so bad, but she found a legal solution in workers' comp.
That's right.
And got a hefty settlement.
Problem with workers' comp is this: it's an insurance solution. Now, an insurance solution means that there's a risk pool. And when Jenny goes to the insurance carrier and files her workers' compensation claim, and the insurance carrier pays that money, they're done. They've paid the money, and what do? What insurers do. They spread that risk to the rest of the pool, which means that you have a large number of legitimate, hardworking, reasonable, honorable, decent employers sharing the risk for what her employer did wrong. And the insurance company isn't going to get that money back. Under this consumer protection statute, the insurance carrier is going to get that money back that it pays if the person brings a claim. And one assumes that they won't be spreading any risk to the rest of the insurance pool, which means we won't have employers paying for that conduct.
Rosemary, reasonable argument that we've just heard from Kevin?
Well, I would say no. I think what this workplace bill does is try and legislate civility in the workplace. And I think that's an impossibility. I think it's misguided, particularly in these times when employers in New Jersey are facing such extreme economic hardship, like everyone else, because of the economy, to impose yet another potential litigation risk for employers, I think is wrong. It will help drive businesses out of New Jersey, and I think it's really unnecessary.
By calling it a civility piece of legislation, doesn't it diminish the standard that's set in the bill, which says you'd have to have physical and psychological damage that you could prove in a court of law?
Well, we all know in litigation that virtually anyone can get a psychiatrist to come in and say that that individual is suffering from some kind of psychological distress. I think that will not serve to prevent these claims from being made.
And is Kevin correct when he says that if you really are in a completely impossible situation where you have truly been driven to great harm, that there is no place else to turn without this law?
Well, I think the workers' comp obviously provides a remedy in extreme cases, but I think what this statute and this movement loses sight of is that employers don't want this to happen. Employers have a great incentive to have their employees be happy and content in the workplace, because all of the studies show that happy workers are the most productive. So rational employers who want to make money and want to be productive are taking steps, have always taken steps, to try and eliminate cases of employee clashes. Every employer that I work with includes in its performance evaluations for supervisors the manner in which they treat their subordinate employees. this type of behavior...
So you think it's not a huge problem for large numbers of workers?
Absolutely. I think that the cases that we hear about are the anomaly and not the norm.
Let me ask Leisa Ann, because her area of expertise is school bullying. And it seems to me that this follows this movement, which apparently is not just here in New Jersey, follows the school bullying that's led to legislation and a whole new kind of awareness all around the country. Is there a difference, Leisa Ann? Are we talking about something that's very different? Are we talking apples and oranges here, just using the same word, bullying?
Sandy, I don't really know, in all honesty. I mean, I think that I think the question is asked a lot is, basically, do kids who engage in school-based bullying go on to become workplace bullies? And I have to concur with Professor David Yamada, my friend and colleague. The similarities between these behaviors are inexplicable. I mean, the research definitely points to that. I think it is really not helpful to, be absolutely black and white that all these kids who engage in this behavior are going to go on to take this behavior into the workplace. I think it is more prudent to really focus on prevention, and we don't seem to do that in either the school-based arena or the workplace arena. And what I will say is, we do know that if schools would really focus on systemic school-based anti-bullying programs, it would go a very long way to curb workplace bullying. So it's a win-win situation. If schools would be in compliance with the law that we have currently in place to obliterate school-based bullying, I think probably your two guests that are discussing workplace bullying would probably have a whole lot less to discuss. So I think the similarities are absolutely there. I certainly would not feel comfortable to say unequivocally that every child who engages in school-based bullying is going to go on to become a workplace bully. But again, as Professor Yamada said, the research has been very consistent that these behaviors pretty much are pretty much similar.
From his research, I mean, he gives us some amazing statistics, and I wonder, Rosemary, how you would respond to a study that the professor cites that 59% of the representative working sample indicated they had experienced at least one type of emotionally abusive behavior at the hands of fellow workers.
Oh, I think that statistic proves my point, that if 59% of the people surveyed are saying they've been victim to workplace bullying, then what we're really talking about is a lack of civility. Even some of the language we see in the statute which talks about undermining work performance. All of us at some point in time have felt that a coworker or supervisor is undermining us. The solution for this, I think, is not more legislation and more lawsuits. The solution is for employers to continue to work through their codes of conduct, through their performance standards, to make certain that the workplace is a productive one.
But who makes sure that happens? I know you said that the smart employer doesn't want to have these kinds of situations, but are we going to count on all employers being so smart?
Well, I think not immediately, but I do think, particularly now, when productivity is such a tremendous issue in a bad economy, that employers are consistently striving to make their employees more productive, to have them do more
Kevin's
shaking
his head.
If I may, as an employment rights lawyer, we receive 60 to 70 contacts for help a week, and we're just one firm. I would say at least 20 to 25 people a week, so that's over 1,000 a year, contact my office and describe situations like this, where employers are absolutely failing to do what Rosemary is talking about.
And are these situations that you would call bullying as it's defined in the statute?
Some of them are. There's a story that I won't forget. So many people call, but I'll remember this woman for a very long time. She was experiencing the kind of bullying that this statute will address, but that the current statutes absolutely don't. And she was going home and she was vomiting and she was losing her hair and she was dropping weight. She had clumps of hair in her hand in the shower, and she filed a workers' compensation claim. and the workers' compensation bills weren't paid back from the employer to the workers' compensation carrier. That risk has been spread to the people of New Jersey and to the other employers of New Jersey. She went on disability, people of New Jersey. She went on unemployment, people of New Jersey. This is a consumer protection statute. This is a Treasury protection statute. This is the right time for Assemblywoman Greenstein to raise these concerns over this long-standing issue. That woman had no recourse. And there are many people each week that call that I have to say, I can't help you.
And yet this statute has gone, this bill has gone nowhere in New Jersey, nor has it gone anywhere in the other states where it's been proposed. And Rosemary, is that because the legislatures are listening to the arguments that you've given us?
Well, I would say the legislatures are being sensible in trying to address this problem if there is a problem. The definitions in a bill like this are so vague and so general that they could include many, many employees. They could inspire a whole round of frivolous litigation that is going to impose tremendous burdens on employers. And I think particularly at this time, the state of New Jersey should not want to be out in front on another area of employment law that is going to impose additional costs on employers and drive more employers from the state of New Jersey.
Leisa Ann, one of the things that surprised me in what you said in your opening statement was that still in schools, bullying is not handled at the preventive in-school level. You've been working to get schools to do that for the last 9 years. We get the feeling outside of schools that this is something that's very sensitive, that it's in the public consciousness now, that we worry about kids being bullied in school, and we've had cases that make us know how bad things can get for kids. Not so?
Sandy, absolutely. I mean, I think that the public perception has shifted. I think it's a positive shift. I think that people are very cognizant of the fact that bullying is victimization. You read about it, you hear about it, but the bottom line is, I unfortunately have said this over and over, I really do not feel as though the LW versus Toms River Public School District case, which is pretty much the landmark case in New Jersey, it has not resonated with school districts in the way that I thought that it would. Are many schools doing it, and doing it with fidelity and integrity? And I mean, prevention, absolutely, positively. Are the majority of the schools doing it? Unfortunately, no. And much like my colleague, I can tell you that he receives calls from victims that are, victimized in the workplace. I still get these phone calls on a daily basis, without exaggeration, of parents who are talking about, with great specificity, of the victimization that their sons and daughters are experiencing. And they can't change their child's placement readily. So
right, which is the point that I wanted to make, Leisa Ann, which is that one major difference is, it may not be easy, but you can leave your job, Kevin. You can't, without bringing a huge amount of evidence to bear, change your school, and we've got about 90 seconds left.
Well, that's true, but the reason that New Jersey Association for Justice thanks Assemblywoman Greenstein for raising this issue is because it's not so easy to leave your job, even in a good economy, and especially not in a bad one. It has effects for your family. It disrupts insurance. It puts the family at risk. It's not easy to say to somebody, look, put up with the vomiting, put up with the psychiatric distress, put up with the illness, the medication, the disability, until you can't stand it anymore, break down, and then if you lose your job, you lose your job. The taxpayers will support you. I favor the idea that the bad actor should be solely responsible for what he or she has done. It's only common sense.
With a minute left, let me just ask you, starting with you, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you expect 5 years from now when we sit down and talk about this again? Will there be a law in place, and will this be as accepted a notion as that, yeah, kids do get bullied?
This is a good discussion to have. It's a work in progress. I think that the law can always be improved. This is not a new statute. It's not imposing new obligations on employers at all. Employers can do the same thing they've always done. They just have to do it with a modicum of restraint and not make people ill in the process.
And Leisa Ann, with just a few seconds to go, your expectation of where this workplace bullying thing is likely to go?
Sandy, I'll just say the parallels are chilling. Whether they're children as victims or adult as victims, as Mr. Costello just stated, you always have the adults leaving the workplace, and you have the children's homeschooled.
Leisa Ann, I'm sorry, I've got to cut you off. I
ones.
just need Rosemary to tell me you don't think this is going anywhere.
I think it is not, and I hope it is not.
With my thanks to Rosemary Alito, to Leisa Ann Smith, and to Kevin Costello. That's it for this edition of Due Process, but we hope you'll join us next week for more on law and social justice. Till then, for all of us here, I'm Sandra King. A hurry back to our coordinating producer, Henrietta Parker, and to all of you, thanks for watching.
It's a pretty good idea. I guess some people don't know how to speak up for themselves, to defend themselves.
I think it should be illegal for one person to bully another person. The person who's doing the bullying should be held accountable more so than the boss.
The law is good to protect the employee, but I don't think anybody should be bullying anyone.
Too many people for too long have been put discounted, discredited.
Yes, it needs to stop because people shouldn't have to go to work and being under pressure by a bully that the place where they're working at. It needs to stop.
I'm the boss. I like to bully.
I don't think that someone should be sued because they are the employer.
You're bullying in school, you don't like that. So I don't think it should be done at work either. Yeah.
Major funding for due process provided by the New Jersey State Bar Foundation, committed to educating the public about the law, and by the Fund for New Jersey, supporting informed citizens for an effective democracy.